This one is from Brian Stockton,
Hi, Brian.
who says, listen to the Clean Energy Show podcast.
This is the Clean Energy Show.
Hello and welcome to episode 72 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
I'm James Whittingham. Canada is on fire this week, and the ocean is on fire. And if that's not enough, the sky is on fire. And Canada's latest green move surprised James. Brian, how are you this week?
I'm great. What's going on with you this week?
Well, my back still hurts and I'm on drugs. So, note to listeners, James is a little bit loopy. Loopier than normal because I've had to double my back medication. Went to the chiropractor, cracked me up, and made me worse. So, and then he went on vacation because he could. He explained.
So, do they give you some good muscle relaxants?
No,
Like,
they
you
do
got
not give me
something
good muscle relaxants, Brian. And even though cannabis is legal in Canada, I have none of that either. So, yeah, I'm just on my own with over-the-counter muscle relaxants. And I don't think chiropractors like muscle relaxants because it puts them out of work. So, anyway, I've got the kids vaccinated with their second shot. And guess what happened?
What
My
happened?
daughter got really sick.
Oh, yeah.
They both got sick. Like 12 hours after the shot, they both got sick, and my wife and I did not get sick. You had very mild symptoms as well.
Yeah, no, I was fine. Nothing really.
And it was so bad that we phoned the health line here that we have, that the government's health department runs, and they were like, oh, well, maybe she should get a COVID test. And she had trouble breathing, like it hurt to breathe in. She had a chest pain. Now, I know kids can get inflamed hearts. It's very rare, but it's possible, but it takes 2 weeks for that to happen, so that couldn't be the explanation.
Mm-hmm.
She had a very high fever, which was getting concerning at one point, and but then we Tylenol'd her up, and fever went down, and she got better the next day. Not right away, but took a while.
So, are you an anti-vaxxer now?
Yeah, I'm an anti-vaxxer. You're crazy. It's not only do I have a Microsoft chip in me, yeah. No, I'm pro-vax. I just... I heard stories for months, like the second Pfizer vaccine, which is what we all had, and it's the only one approved for my kids' age, gives you more side effects than the first vaccine. And so I was ready to get really sick, and I was happy to do it because the alternative for somebody incredibly unhealthy like me is to catch this thing, a mild case of it, and die instantly. So I was going to drop like a fly. I was happy to get sick. But I didn't, not really, just a little bit. I took a Tylenol, and a slight ache, slight fatigue went away fairly quickly. And but my kids, my son felt miserable too, but he got better real fast, like within a few hours. So we're good to go. And they're all, my son's a grocery store worker, a cashier, so they're lifting all restrictions here, and people won't be wearing masks, and he'll be right there at the front line, so... He needs it.
Yeah, no, that's good. He's got the second shot. I mean, I guess takes a bit of time for it to fully take effect, but that's good.
Last week, Brian, I mentioned that I have a 10 by 20 solar array for my pool, which is basically tiny mats, black mats with tubes going through it. And you have a 1 horsepower pump pumping the water through there. Okay. I was trying to get it really hot. It was controversial. You said, James, the family, you're having trouble getting the family to go in as it is. So why are you going to make it hot?
Yeah, and we were having a heat wave. So on the one hand, you can make the water really hot with your excellent solar heating. On the other hand, it's a heat wave. You don't want that.
Yes, and it's we're going to get to the big heat wave in North America in a second, but it was moderately hot here. And I set a new record of 93.5, but I'm sitting in my pool in the hot sun at 93.5 Fahrenheit. And in pool temperatures, I used to have a natural gas-powered heater, and it was decadent to have it at 86.
Yeah.
Decadent and damn right stupid to waste all that energy and pollution for 86. Because your average public pool is 78, 80 if you're at a nice place, and
I always find them very cold.
They're all very cold, and my family, of course, the hotter it is outside, the colder the water is, no matter how warm it is. So I figured, hey, they're not going to flinch. It's going to be bathtub warm. Well, I sat in there and I got sick. I was boiling like a hot dog, and I had to get out. It was
you cooked yourself.
It was that hot. It was that hot. So I know I have a limit now. And that limit, Brian, is 93 degrees Fahrenheit. And, it's just neat. because you don't have a gas heater, it's neat to have it hot in the evening when it cools down, just so you can go for an evening swim. And it's cool. I really like swimming in the morning because it's just, I don't know, there's a different vibe about swimming in the morning. I rarely get to swim in the morning with a solar heater because you have to wait till the mid-afternoon before it heats up. So I overcooked the pool, but I overcooked James. And yeah, I
Do you have
damn
a
near...
cover? Like, can you sort of maintain the heat overnight?
Yeah, there's a solar cover that goes on that prevents evaporation mostly. It's not really insulating. It's a minor insulation. But the evaporation is what takes the heat away when the water evaporates. And I lost a whole inch. I did actually leave it off that night. I never do that. And I lost a whole bunch of degrees, quite a few degrees, like 6 or 7 degrees, significantly more than I would have normally. And I lost an inch of water because it all evaporated. So that's, water that I have to pay for to put back in. And it's certainly not going to rain around here, is it? It's crazy. What's new with you?
Not lately, no.
I hear your e-bike has a problem. What's going on with your e-bike?
Yeah, so I went to use my electric bike the other day.
Which is
the
rare.
Fido D11 folding bike we've talked about on the show before. And went to go turn it on, and it was just dead, like nothing. It's dead as a doornail.
Well,
so it's still a bicycle, and it's got a chain, and you can still pedal with it, but the battery is completely dead. So I emailed the company I bought it from. It was a company in Toronto that shipped it to me, and they said, send me a video of your problem so that they can sort of verify it and figure out what to do. So I made a video showing that the thing doesn't work, and they sent me a video of how to troubleshoot. I've got to kind of open it up and check a fuse inside.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask you, do you have a multimeter? Like, it's one of those
I
things
do.
where you can test circuits and stuff? Okay, I might have to borrow that from you.
Okay.
Because they sent me this video. I got to pop off a panel, and I got to take a fuse out, and I got to check it with this multimeter, and that will tell me if the fuse is good. I suspect that's probably the problem, that the fuse is gone, and I just need to replace the fuse. But, this is how it works when you buy something off the internet. You kind of have to email a video, and then you got to fix the damn thing yourself.
Wow, I've never heard of somebody being asked to make a video of something before. Have you? I mean, this is kind of odd.
Yeah, I once had a tire replaced on my car. Like, I had these new tires that had a road hazard warranty. And it wasn't a video, it was pictures.
I remember that.
So they sent me a free tire, but I had to... take a saw and ruin the old tire.
Oh my
and take
God!
Pictures
I
of it
remember
and
that now.
Prove to them that I wasn't scamming them.
That's worse. You had to physically take a saw and saw your old tire. So you weren't scamming them. I have heard of e-bike batteries being faulty. Now I don't know why that is. If it is the fuse, if it is the cells. And the ones on Amazon usually get replaced. Just call our line and we'll send you another one. I don't know what those people had to go through to get another one or if they got another one, but that's what they're claiming online. So,
and we'll see how difficult it is to pull this panel off. Yeah, I was kind of annoyed. I was hoping they were just going to say, ship us the battery and we'll ship you a new one. But if you've got a multimeter, then maybe I will, follow their instructions and try and do it myself.
Sure. Honestly, my multimeter has some weird settings on it that doesn't make sense to me. So I'm not sure what setting to switch the dial to, but
you got some weird black market multimeter?
No, it's good because electricians probably know what it means. I don't know what anything means. I know what the 1.5 volt battery, tester part is. I know what that setting's for. I'm not sure what to put it on for an e-bike. So it's 36 volts or
and that's one of the steps in the video is to check that the voltage is correct, which is around there.
Why don't we play a clip from that video?
This is assemble the fuse first, and then use a multimeter to check whether the fuse is good. It is good to make this sound, and then put it back. If it still cannot be turned on, then we use a multimeter to test the two white wires. Turn on, turn off.
All right, Brian, it's there's been an unprecedented heat wave in the northwest of the United States and in British Columbia and Canada on the west coast. Before last week's show, a few days before last week's show, my son sent me a thing, and he said, hey, look, this place in BC, Lyntton, British Columbia, has a heat wave. And I said, oh, if their forecast holds for Wednesday, which was like 5 or 6 days later from when he sent me this, will have set the record heat wave in Canada, the record high temperature in Canada, which was set a couple of hours south of us, which was 45
Initially,
degrees.
yeah.
That record stood for 77 years in Yellowgrass and Mydale, Saskatchewan. 77 years ago was 45 degrees, and we haven't really come that close to it. Well, they broke it by almost 5 degrees Celsius, which is, almost twice that in Fahrenheit degrees. Like, they blew it out of the water. They set the record one day, they broke the record the second day, and on the third day they broke it again, and it was 49.6 Celsius, which is something like 117. 118 degrees Fahrenheit, and the town burned down the very day.
On the fourth day, the town burned down. 90% of the town up in flames after 3 days of record temperatures. It's just insane.
Yes, I hadn't heard of Lyntton. It's a small little town along a river valley in British Columbia where it can get hot, but it got so hot, it's actually higher than the record temperature ever set in Las Vegas, Nevada. They actually were hotter than Las Vegas has ever gotten during recorded times.
That's crazy.
And as I've said on the podcast many times, I've been to Death Valley when it was 50 degrees a couple years ago, 50 degrees Celsius, which is like 122 Fahrenheit or something like that, or 120. I can't remember. And it was unbearable. And my wife was talking about this too, as I thought, okay, well, maybe I was being exaggerating that I couldn't be out of the car for 10 minutes because I'm unhealthy. Well, she's a lot healthier than I am, and she said 10 minutes was it. I mean, the kids went for maybe 12 or 13. But when we would stop at a site, there was sand dunes there was different things. There was sort of a salt plain and lots of interesting things to stop. You literally could not handle it anymore. It was painful. And to think that, it gets warm in the interior, but it's very likely that a lot of places did not have air conditioning. In fact, Seattle and Portland have the lowest rate of air conditioners in the United States. And they had this heat wave. And the infrastructure, some of the roads melted. The sidewalks buckled. Because, the roads that they make in Arizona are made of different sort of stuff than they do it there. In fact, we noticed a lot of them were concrete down there. But, so the tar melted and became soft. And even the streetcar cables, they had to shut down the streetcar cables because the electricity was overheating the streetcar. They weren't designed for that temperature. And this is what climate change is about. We can't pin this event on climate change, but events like this are what's going to happen more frequently, and we have to. It just shows that we're not prepared. We're not prepared, and it's going to cost us a shitload of money.
No, and many people, hundreds of people, really have lost their lives from this. A heat wave where people don't have air conditioning. Lots of people have perished. 2 people perished in the fire of Lyntton. I think we're lucky that more weren't lost in that fire. It's devastating. It's a headline tailor-made to explain climate change. We've got a town that breaks the heat record on day 1, breaks it on day 2, breaks it again on day 3, and day 4 burns to the ground.
Instantly.
Like, if that doesn't explain climate change, I don't know what does.
And I hope it gets lots of international attention, what happened in Lyntton, BC.
I think we have a clip from CBC, our national newscast, a guy named Gord Murray, who is a resident of Lyntton, and I thought he summed it up well, so we pulled a clip from
Gordon Murray, his partner, and their pets were among those who escaped.
I just wanted to say it's really kind of a microcosm of, not to put too fine a point on it, but climate change. Because we are, it's a small, rural, indigenous, low-income community, and we're at the spear point of climate change, but it's coming for everybody. We're the canary in the coal mine. We had the heat and the chaos, but we weren't prepared. And I don't believe that society is prepared in the same kind of way. And so we have to as a society, work together to get ready and to make changes now. Because as we discovered, if you are scrambling at the last minute, you leave people behind.
Yeah, and the summer's not over. There's a drought. There's more heat, not that extreme, but no rain. I think the place is going to burn down. It's going to be a bad fire season.
No, it certainly sounds like it. I mean, around here, the temperatures have kind of come back down again. So, and, Lyntton burned down a week ago. And there is this cycle where it's like, well, the temperature comes back to normal. And, you tend to think, oh, okay, things are normal again. And this is the pattern. And it will be normal again. And until it's not.
Yeah. And if this is, my son points out some of the climate charts that those places in British Columbia are going to see a lot of heating, and the trees, the forests that are there, they're not going to be able to handle it. Some of them are going to die. Like they're already shedding needles and things like that, they just can't handle the heat as it is. And if we have more and more heat waves, like if we have one of these a year in 10 years, then it's going to be pretty bad.
No, and there's a vicious cycle in terms of the like lightning storms that can cause forest fires. And so I pulled another clip about that as well, again from CBC, The National.
From space, you can see the heat signatures as the fire pushed north. And while it had helped to grow, the danger now is that this wildfire can help itself. Take a look at this. What you're seeing is a mix of storm clouds and smoke, but they can act the same way. Pyrocumulus clouds from wildfires can produce dry lightning and intense wind gusts, sparking new fires. And relief won't come as that heat dome continues east. It will open the door to more instability and intense thunderstorms.
All right.
And speaking of thunderstorms, we saw over 29,000 cloud-to-ground strikes yesterday, a literal firestorm setting off dozens of new wildfires yesterday, Ian.
Yeah, Brian, that's Johanna Wagstaff, and I like Johanna Wagstaff because she's serious. She knows her stuff, and she knows about climate change. She talks about earthquakes. She did a podcast on earthquakes possible for the West Coast. I have a pet peeve, so I'm going to just going to interject here with a clean energy pet peeve. Clean energy pet peeve. I see so many journalists talking about this, saying we have to mitigate climate change so this doesn't happen again. We have to do our thing so this doesn't happen. It's not the way it works, people. The way it works. Yeah. The way it works is if we cut all of our emissions now magically, it would still take, I don't know, a century or so. It's not going to climate change is happening. It's going to get worse no matter what. And what we are fighting climate change for is not because the climate is changing. It's because the earth is going to fall off a precipice, that there's going to be feedback loops, that there'll be a point of no return. I mean, that's overly simplifying it, but what do you think?
Wait, is that a flat earth rant?
No, it's not a flat earth rant. It's not a flat earth rant. I'm just saying, we are fighting climate change. The Paris Accord is designed to save the planet, literally, not to stop climate change, because we can't stop climate change. We don't have the willpower. We don't have the money. We're not doing it as it is. We need to reach certain targets just to save the damn planet, to make it livable.
The climate has already changed.
Yes, and it's going to continue to change. And we have to wake up to this, and I think what happened in Lyntton and the Pacific Northwest is a wake-up call. We don't always talk about climate change on the show. We talk about the technology that's going to help with climate change because we think that technology is cool, and it is, and we'll get to some of that in a minute. But it's scary. It's scary to think that this is going to happen more and more often. And you know what, Brian? Mm-hmm. They had to deal with floods. Because the glaciers melted 3 times as fast as normal. So you get all this crap to deal with, and then it's flooding.
Let's play the clip.
It's been a dangerous week. Around 300 deaths in BC linked to the brutal heat wave. And it's not just fires, it's floods. Soaring temperatures in the mountains created an unprecedented alpine melt and flood watches and warnings. In McBride, the Fraser River spilled its banks, allowing moose to wade through fields. and forcing crews to shore up the walls of this sewage lagoon.
So they worked at that all night. And then about an hour ago, the water got high enough to where if they hadn't done the work, it would have been overtopping it.
All brought on by that merciless dome of heat. These dire days, so early in the season, experts say, could become the norm, as climate change means more of this more often.
Sewage lagoons overflowing.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was, again, an illustration of exactly what's happening. It's not just one thing. It's a heat record. It's a firestorm, and then it's a flood all at the same time. It's biblical things.
Which is sad. Just sad, Brian, how bad things are. And you know what?
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the ocean on fire, but maybe we should, do some more fun news first.
No, let's get to the ocean on fire. I think we should get all the fire out of the way.
Get that out of the way.
I saw the ocean burning. The ocean was burning, and it seemed like CGI. It seemed like this is a ridiculous disaster movie that's not physically possible. How can the ocean burn? But I saw it with my own eyes on video, and the ocean was burning. You want to explain what was going on there?
Well, there was a natural gas pipeline under there. Was it the Gulf of Mexico? Is that where
Yes.
this was? And it somehow burst and caught on fire. And then the video is quite amazing because there's boats that look like they're, like fire trucks shooting water at the blaze to put it out. But I guess they were shooting nitrogen or something.
Oh no, they were shooting nitrogen?
It's already surrounded by water, so I think more water wouldn't have put out the fire.
Just to kill the oxygen?
Yeah, so apparently it was nitrogen. This is the thing that they used on the fire because, there's already water everywhere, and they needed nitrogen to put it out, apparently.
Okay, let's get to some good news. I think you're right. We need to get to some good news. New Zealand has some good news, and we're trying to expand our audience beyond Australia, where we found our first confirmed, admitted listener a couple of weeks ago. Now let's move on to New Zealand, because I don't think we have anybody in New Zealand. It's a small country. Statistically speaking, only about 100 people should be listening to our podcast down there. If you're in New Zealand, drop us an email, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com, where I get all kinds of spam, Brian, every day just to have that email account going. Such a joy. So send me an actual email. It'll make me happy.
But it seemed weird that we were always getting news about Australia was sort of percolating in the ether, and we would bring it up on the show. So now it's New Zealand. And also, too, I was going to mention they also had a heat wave in New Zealand, where the average temperatures in June were 2 Celsius higher than normal, with 24 locations hitting their own heat records in New Zealand. So this is on the other side of the planet, and yet also caught up in that heat wave. So they have introduced a new incentive for electric vehicles in New Zealand, and it's pretty direct. They're adding a tax on combustion vehicles and essentially taking that money and giving it to people who want to buy an EV. So that's, probably the way this should work, because we want to encourage people, to move to the cleaner technology.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people argue for that. I think that's kind of what Australia is doing, or not Australia, Norway. Norway is a very successful incentive/de-incentive program. They're de-incentivizing combustion vehicles. So that's an interesting way to do it. Politically in Canada, where we live, would not go over well, at least in oil country where we're situated.
No, in lots of places, it's a real political struggle to do something like a carbon tax, which is the problem they're having in the U.S. right now. And instead of doing a carbon tax, they're doing a subsidy for EVs. I don't know that that's the right way to go, but they just think politically, it's very hard to add taxes pretty much anywhere, but, particularly in the U.S.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about some of the things that the federal government in Canada is doing this week. They are very bold. We have a three-party system in Canada, and we have kind of the centrist, slightly left of center party in power, and they're outflanking the leftist parties, the Green Party and the Democrat Party on the left, with their green moves. So, I think political will has changed in this country, And they're obviously seeing, the moral imperative to do the right thing, but also that is politically acceptable, that they're doing well, I'm told, in the polls.
And yeah, all the things we've just talked about, like the ocean on fire, is perhaps having some effect.
It is quite the visual to see the ocean on fire. It's just something you never thought you would ever see. I didn't think it was even possible. And how did that flame get ignited? Like, did somebody throw a cigarette on it? Come on.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it's just a spark from the pipe breaking apart. There was another one as well. There was another sea fire in the Caspian Sea. There was another some kind of explosion and fire. So there wasn't just one. There was two ocean fires.
If you're one of our many seafaring listeners, be careful out there. The ocean is apparently burning in many places. Be extra cautious when you're
and sharks. Watch out for
sharks. Are nothing compared to an ocean on fire. So Canada's made a couple moves this week, and I find them interesting. One is a high-frequency train line from Toronto to Quebec City via Montreal, kind of the major corridor of a highly populated, it's kind of like the Pennsylvania or Philadelphia, Washington, New York type of thing, our version of it. And they're talking about not a high-speed train, but a high-frequency train. They're also saying that it's going to be 90% electricity generated, and that there's not a lot of details, Brian, but they're saying that it's going to knock 90 minutes off a normal train ride, which is already reasonably popular, and that'll put it ahead of the time it takes to get on a flight to those places, because you have to, go through airport screening and whatnot. So you'll be able to take a train more conveniently.
Yeah, if there's ever a place for a high-speed train in Canada, that's it. It's not as fast as some of the high-speed trains in other places. And in fact, I took the train once from Toronto to Ottawa, and I was surprised to learn there was a guy. He wasn't the conductor. I don't know. There was a guy on the train that was liked to chat about trains who worked for the train, and he said that the train
good job for him then.
The train that already exists goes up to 170 kilometers an hour. So this is but that's the peak speed. It doesn't always go that fast. But also too, by the time we got about an hour away from Ottawa, for some reason we had to slow way down, and the whole trip took like an hour longer than it was supposed to. So it's something that needs upgrades.
Yeah.
For sure.
So that a lot of what that is actually freight trains on the same rails that causes congestion, and that's probably what happened to you. So they're saying, there's a train coalition that I follow on Twitter that says this is huge news. The upfront costs for electrification are high, but lower operating costs, faster service, quieter trains. You can't put a price on that. If you live next to a train track, yes, they got to blow their horn, but the trains are a lot quieter when they're electric. So I don't know what the 10% that can't be electric deal is. They don't talk about the details like that. What they are talking about is making largely their own line for this train. So it's a new line in parallel with the other lines. So just the passenger trains can go on it. I'm also speculating that it would be kind of like a freeway where you would build some bridges and overpasses, so you don't have to slow down in places and you can keep going and stop. But again, it's not a high-speed train. It's just a higher-speed train. So, yeah, the speculation is that it could be $10 to $12 billion, and the timeline could take to 2030. Much more money than they're saying, much more time than they're saying. But hopefully they can improve upon those numbers. So, yeah, that's big news for Canada because a lot of people for business and pleasure fly to those cities from those two very populated areas in Quebec and Ontario, and it will take emissions off, Brian.
Yeah, it's good news for sure.
Algoma Steel Mill is a steel mill that is going green, and it is in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Algoma Steel Mill is to be Canada's first green steel manufacturer. So what they're doing, they're using right now. They're using coal. I'm not a steel mill expert. You're not either. I mean, Expert on a lot
You're
of things.
not? I assumed you were.
Well, I will be by the time we're done this podcast in 2030. I'll be able to go on the speaker circuit and talk about my vast knowledge of everything. So they're changing from using coal to melt that steel to using electricity, clean electricity to melt that steel. And they're taking, hundreds of millions of dollars from the federal government to do this. But here's the thing. You say that, it's going to take jobs to change the steel mill over. But what about the jobs after that? They always talk about jobs to build pipelines, but it doesn't take that many people to maintain a pipeline. So it's kind of deceptive to think that 25,000 people will be permanently working when you build a pipeline. No, it's not. It's hotels and stuff like that when they're building it. So my thesis is that there's a huge demand for green steel, right? You talked about Volvo going out and BMW going outside of Germany to get the green steel in one of the Nordic countries, right?
Yeah, and basically as every country decarbonizes, they're going to decarbonize everything. Like, we're moving towards like a 2050 decarbonization of everything, and that means it's not just burning gas in your car, it's, everything that you make, like steel. So if you can source it from a clean source, everybody eventually is going to not just want to do that, but need to do it.
Yeah, so there's going to be a high demand to say, hey, our car is built with green steel, our doohickey is built with green steel, you should buy from us. And that's already happening. And it seems like it's just going to explode in the next 2 to 3 years, the demand for green steel, especially once it's available. Everybody's going to want it. And that's going to keep people employed at that steel mill. I've got a steel mill approximately 1.5 miles away from my house. Don't care for it. It stinks sometimes. Not too bad. Not like the oil refinery in the other direction. But it does stink sometimes, and they make a lot of noise dropping their pipes around. All 24 hours a day. But electric...
You can actually hear that from that distance?
I can, because I have rigid foam insulation in my passive solar house built in 1979. It is not soundproof. I can hear my neighbors, almost hear my neighbors talking through the wall.
So your house reverberates like a speaker, basically.
Well, it's not soundproof. That's all I got to say.
Well, I can tell you that when the Rolling Stones played in our city, I could hear the concert from inside my house, and it was definitely a few kilometers away.
That's a long ways away. Yeah, I actually went to that. I was podcasting at the time and took my podcast to the Rolling Stones concert.
Oh, right. I remember that, yeah.
Let's play a clip. We are outside the Rolling Stones concert night 2. It's Sunday, and there's about 100 people with camcorders and digital cameras, children and babies, standing beside the football stadium, Taylor Field, where the Rolling Stones just started their encore. I gotta walk through them. Some of them are scary, some of them are pretty normal. I assume I had a clip there, Brian. I edited it in. I don't know that I have, but there you go. Wasn't that fun? So electric arc furnace using clean electricity. Now, they haven't said how that clean electricity, where it's going to come from. I know there's a steel mill owned by Evraz in Colorado that is building solar panels around their steel mill to make it more environmental. But where's that clean electricity coming from? Ontario has hydro, but not a lot of clean green electricity. So they're going to have to figure out where that's coming from to make this a clean steel mill. And even if they used electricity off the grid, it's still better, right? And getting better every day. But I assume they're going to put up some green power. So that's interesting. And that's one of the big challenges with steel mills is the manufacturing is one of the biggest challenges of getting emissions down for climate change, stuff like that. And they're talking about hydrogen steel mills and other places, but this is just electric arc furnace. So I don't know if that melts all the steel you want to melt, or if it just melts aluminum, or what it melts. I'm not an expert, but we will find out more information as the podcast goes on. We're here every Wednesday, by the way. Thinking about taking a bit of a break because of summer vacation. Should we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's possible we will miss a week or two over the summer, so don't be alarmed. We will be back, but we have lives, and we like to enjoy those lives.
Sure, we have lives. Yeah. yeah, just we need a little bit of a break from the show every week. My God, man, 72 shows nonstop. We're a factory of content, but we will be around. Subscribe to our podcast if you're new, and we do like to talk about a lot of things here on the show, including and not exclusively things like Tesla.
The Clean Energy Show podcast. Yeah, it's got to be mostly Musk.
Mostly Musk was the other possible title for this.
Yeah, so if you're joining us from the Stop Podcasting Yourself podcast, we do talk about Tesla sometimes. In fact, I'm going to talk about it this week, Brian, because it is my EV of the week.
Yeah, so we did have a little ad there on Stop Podcasting Yourself, so thanks very much to them for sharing the ad and making some excellent jokes about the show. But go ahead with the EV of the week.
All right, this is our Musk Talk this week. The EV of the week is the Tesla Model X, the premier vehicle from Tesla. It is the SUV-sized vehicle with Falcon Wing doors. I have a friend who bought one. I mocked him for spending something like 170,000 Canadian dollars on one. He says, they pay for themselves. No, they don't. They don't pay for themselves that much. They a few thousand, but not 170. My dear friend. Maybe he's rich enough to buy another luxury vehicle, but it's still not going to pay for itself. I'm sorry. The Tesla Model X is. I felt like it was in a minivan. It was just it doesn't look big from the outside. That's what's remarkable about it. You get in it and you feel like you're in a mid-sized to full SUV pretty much.
Yeah, it's a Snoopy's doghouse kind of phenomenon. It's somehow everything fits inside there. It's a remarkable space.
Yeah, because it's rounded, you don't have the image of a boxy, trucky vehicle, but it is quite large on the inside, and it's $91,000 for the long-range version. That is the base version, I think, right now, and it's 360 miles or 579 kilometers. Good amount of range. Like I said, the Falcon Wing doors. I just watched Back to the Future with my daughter the other night, trying to get her, from YouTube and TikTok onto movies. Enjoyed that. The DeLorean had Falcon Wing-like doors. $121,000 for the plaid version, which was just released, and it has a little less range because it is a powerhouse vehicle. They all have dual motors, so you got all-wheel drive. It tows 5,000 pounds quite well, but you will lose a lot of range because the efficiency of an electric motor is so good that you notice it more, as we talked about last week. So the long-range Model X comes standard with 2 electric motors, one at the front axle, one at the rear axle, which enables all-wheel drive. The setup is plenty swift, and Tesla claims a 0 to 60 miles per hour time of 3.8 seconds. Now, that is fast in a sports car. But in a big-ass minivan, can you imagine going that fast? It's uncanny. And 1,020 horsepower, 3-motor plaid, high-performance variant boasts a claimed 0 to 60 of 2.5 seconds, which my body cannot handle. It's the one reason why I don't fly in fighter jets.
Yeah, no, it's that is definitely faster than most cars, and it's a ridiculously large vehicle that can carry
it's insane.
A ridiculous amount of passengers and cargo.
You're not in a tiny car hugging the ground. You're this massive thing going at 2.5 seconds, 0 to 60. It is crazy. And the car driver says the lows of the Model X are the interior lacks a luxury panache, which is a common Tesla criticism, that it is premium but not luxury on the interior. The top hinge Falcon Wing doors are a bit fussy at times. The fit and finish is questionable. But among electric SUVs, the Model X reigns supreme in driving range, but its rivals offer a better luxury experience. What do you think about the Model X?
It's fantastic, and it's just the price. That's the only problem.
Do you think that they'll come up with a variant that doesn't have the Falcon Wing doors? Do you think that Elon has admitted that was a bit too complex for the vehicle?
I don't know. I think they've been able to make it work well enough. They've definitely had problems. They've had to fix some of those doors, but I think they've got it kind of ironed out by now.
The affordable, smaller version Model Y of their crossover version of the 3 on the Model 3 platform, there was talk that was going to have Falcon Wing doors, and I think even Elon himself at one time said that, and people were like, "No, don't do that." The cost.
Yeah, he probably wanted it, but yeah, it's too complicated. You gotta keep the price down.
And it certainly would have been cool for your common everyday SUV crossover purchaser to have that in the parking lot of the grocery store.
No, and they also just mentioned this week that the Cybertruck that's coming out, within the next year or so is now going to have 4-wheel steering. The rear wheels are also going to be able to turn. And I had a kind of a similar reaction to that. I kind of thought, I want them to get that out and get it out as soon as possible. Just stop adding features. Just make it simpler and get it out.
I think that there's going to be more surprises with the Cybertruck. I think it's going to be practically amphibious, that the water rating on it is going to be insane. And, they're putting rocket engines on the Roadster that's supposed to come out in the next year or two from SpaceX, the SpaceX package, which is quite the upgrade when you're adding rocket engines. Brian, you know what? I think we're here. The Back to the Future people knew there wasn't going to be flying cars in 2015 when they did the sequel of Going to the Future, but the ocean's on fire, and yeah. We're here. The future's here. I'm sorry, but we've arrived. I've declared it. We've arrived in the future. Yeah. Hello.
All right. Good to know.
Hello, future. Here we are. Brian, last week we had feedback because you talked about in the previous show to that you got a cottage out of the lake that you bought off your parents, and it is very old. It's original, and everybody else is building multi-million-dollar mansions around you, and you're thinking about upgrading to rammed earth. And Paul,
yeah, I don't want to make a multi-million-dollar mansion, but I do want to make something that is nice and livable and environmentally friendly, something that is hopefully net zero in terms of electricity, solar panels on the roof, etc. But yeah, rammed earth was kind of the top choice so far in terms of building materials. It's basically compacted mud and clay and a little bit of cement. And if you don't know about rammed earth, just go on to YouTube. That's what I did, and then spent the next 48 hours watching nothing but rammed earth videos on YouTube. But yeah, it's really a fantastic building material. It lasts a long time. And here in Canada, you can put insulation in the middle of it, so it's also very energy efficient. And yeah, we had some feedback last week from Paul, who suggested that maybe a straw bale house might be the way to go. And I said, isn't that for hippies? And but I didn't know that much about it. So, I went down the kind of straw bale house YouTube rabbit hole this week. And I'm here to declare that, yes, straw bale houses are for hippies. It is definitely for hippies. It's not bad. It's a decent way to build a house. It's probably cheaper than doing rammed earth.
Really?
But it's definitely not better. And it works best for people who are kind of like DIYers, who are, literally building the house themselves. Yeah. You often encase it. So basically the straw bales are compacted, and that's your insulation. And so you end up with very thick walls with excellent insulation thermal properties. And then you usually you put the outsides with cob, which is like a, cement kind of mud kind of texture, different than rammed earth, but you sort of mud the place up, and that's how you finish it. And again, really good for insulation, really good for thermal properties. But it won't last as long as rammed earth. It doesn't look as good as rammed earth. It's much more like a conventional building. It's still a stick frame building where you put up a stick frame. You're just using straw bales as the insulation rather than, pink fiberglass or something. And, you can probably finish it with something other than cob. You could probably put more traditional walls on it. But, I wasn't convinced in any way. I think rammed earth is still the way to go. Earth ships are kind of the other hippie technology for building houses, where you kind of build it into the side of a hill. And I've never been a huge fan of those either.
And also, Brian, if you want to learn about vaccines, you can also go to YouTube as well. It's a very good place to learn about vaccines. I considered straw bale, in my earlier days, and I knew that there was some risk to it becoming moldy and wet and deteriorating, and I thought that's kind of a risk if you don't do it right. And it's not like people are building straw bale houses around here all the time. So it's not like there's expert builders, and if it is DIY, then you're doing a lot of it yourself. But then people build rammed earth houses by themselves too. I like the idea of rammed earth though, because they're almost like Adobe, in a way.
You kind of need an expert builder really for both of them. I think straw bale is a bit simpler. You got to make sure you get your mixture of like soil and clay and cement and everything correct in your rammed earth house. You got to make sure your forms are really solid. So there are, potential things that can go wrong building rammed earth as well. But it ultimately should last longer. Like I say, a straw bale, it's more like a traditional house.
Right. So there's nobody building. We live in a small populated area here. Nobody's building rammed earth houses here, right?
There's 2 or 3 here in our province.
Who built them? Did somebody come in? That's my question.
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 in the province, and there's now a company in Saskatoon, our sister city, that specializes in rammed earth. And I know this because their ad showed up on my Instagram one day. So we've taken note of them, and we're probably going to contact them at some point in this process. So yeah, there is a local company that specializes in rammed earth.
Brian, a long time ago, we were talking about a geothermal electricity generating project that is supposedly getting close to being certified and proven by now, I thought, actually, in June or earlier, in our province. And we said, well, the pandemic will be over by next summer. We'll go down. Do you still feel that way? That we should go down there if we can and talk to them?
Yeah, well, it's... so you're saying we would leave the house?
Yes, we would leave the house fully vaccinated. I'm not just interested in the emission lowering though. It's always the benefits, the other benefits, the side benefits. The trains are quiet. The buses are quiet. There's no stink from your steel mill, and there will still be some, but you can't melt steel without something stinking.
No, and the other thing is we live in oil country, and the nice thing about doing geothermal electricity generation is that you can use a lot of the same workers and a lot of the same technology that's used to drill oil wells, but use it for geothermal. In fact, there was a story this week in Psychology Today, which I don't normally read, but it came up in my Twitter feed. There's an excellent piece here from a guy named Michael Unger. The all-electric Ford F-150 pickup truck will affect mental health. That's the headline of the story.
Wow.
And basically the gist is that in places, like oil field country, a lot of hardworking people working on those rigs, and a lot of them are driving electric or, just like Ford pickup trucks. But now they have to contend with this mental image of, wait a minute, the truck I'm using for work now is electric. I'm putting myself out of business. So yeah, it was a really nice piece about the effect that, an electric pickup truck could have on people that work in that field.
Very fascinating headline. And I can see that coming soon. We'll see how this time next year we'll see a lot of trucks out on the roads that are all electric, and how people are dealing with it. We're still seeing pickup trucks parked in Tesla stalls, charging stalls, and being jerks like that, and being threatened. The threat is yet to come.
Yeah, and this guy who wrote the article, it's like his research area is, his specialty is resiliency, and so that's really what he's kind of focusing on. And these areas that have a lot of oil workers are going to have to, like, it's going to happen whether they want it to or not. But it's how you approach it mentally. Like, hopefully you're prepared for it.
All right, Brian, we're running out of time, but let's get to what do you think?
What do you think?
Quickly, Brian, Elon says that FSD is harder than he thought. That's kind of a scary admission. I see the stock didn't crash.
Yeah, stock has been so-so. I still stick by my thing. I think, end of the summer, we should have a significant release of that full self-driving by the end of the summer. That's still, maybe, I'm already backtracking. Maybe not in Canada, because, of course, it's a different thing up here. But I think by the end of the summer, there should be a significant full self-driving release out for Tesla.
Let's hope so, because the self-driving thing is such a weird question. We know that Waymo and others crews are doing it on a limited basis. We know that in theory, it works, and they're not killing anyone as far as we know, so that's good. But will Tesla's vision-only AI work? And we don't have the answer to that yet. We assume it will.
Well, and we don't have the answer if anyone's
right.
self-driving is going to work. Nothing is proven yet, but end of the summer, that's my prediction. And that's not
end of which summer?
Approved or anything. There's still a regulatory step. That'll still have some human interventions, but the basics of it should be out by the end of the summer.
I disagree. We'll move on, though. Plaid Model S fire. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, there was a big story in the Tesla world this week where a brand new Tesla Model S Plaid caught on fire, and they've only, released maybe 1,000 of these out into the wilds. There's not that many. So one of them catching on fire is potentially a very big deal. There was immediately the person whose car caught on fire lawyered up and started making pronouncements about suing, and it's a strange story. Apparently this person is also involved in a financial firm that owns a lot of shares in Tesla. It could even be short shares. It's so we shouldn't even be talking about this like many stories until everything is kind of complete. But I don't know. There's a lot of suspicion in the Tesla community about this fire. It's something that doesn't seem right.
Without any further ado, let's get to the lightning round. The Clean Energy Show lightning round. Oh, this is where we breeze through the headlines and clean up stuff that we haven't talked about yet this week. Brian, Tesla set a new quarterly sales record.
Yeah, so it was kind of expected, but it's still a big deal. The question is, can they set another record next quarter and the quarter after, which a lot of us are expecting. So it was 201,000 cars delivered in the quarter versus 185 in the previous quarter. So, yeah, the stock still hasn't really moved, but, maybe quarter three, maybe quarter four, we'll see.
Heat pumps desperately need a rebranding. Why? Because they also cool your home. You don't have an air conditioner in your home, but you are, let's say, horny for a heat pump.
Yeah, well, and it's they're becoming quite popular in Australia, if we can get back to Australia, where they tend to call them reverse cycle air conditioners. So is that a better name, reverse cycle air conditioner?
No, because you're in Canada. You want to heat your home. How about a heating and cooling pump? Or a hot-cold pump? Or a happy ending pump? I don't know. But the thing is, people don't realize that they work both ways. And replacing gas furnaces or inefficient baseboard electricity heating will free up power to displace other fossil fuels, and it'll help you in heat waves. So AC, air filtration, wildfires burning outside your door, things like that. Yeah. So it's just one of those things. We need to. I didn't know much about heat pumps a year ago. I've learned a lot from the show.
No, it is a problem. People don't even know that they exist. But yeah, it is becoming more of a thing in Australia where they call it a reverse cycle air conditioner. I actually also have another story here about that, which is somebody did a study in Australia and found that these reverse cycle air conditioners were cheaper to run to heat your home in Australia than gas heating. And this is exactly what they're doing, is getting rid of their natural gas heating in Australia. Now, the thing is, it doesn't get all that cold in Australia. So this might not hold true here in Canada or the northern U.S. where it gets a little too cold. But it's a nice sort of proof of concept that we should be able to eventually switch all of our houses over to heating with, heat pumps, or air source heat pumps is another name for them. Yeah, it's got a branding problem.
So that's amazing. I don't know what the natural gas prices are in Australia. They could be very different than what they are here. They're pretty cheap here. But to think that you could actually save money by going green. And the theory is that next decade, electricity is going to get cheaper because, the saturation of green electricity is going to take a lot to get off the ground. But once it's off the ground and established, then it becomes, free in some cases. Like they could be desalinating with excess electricity, water for California. Because I feel sorry for California. They have a lot less water than they did. So the city of Vancouver is making a bold move. This is in British Columbia, the capital. It's not the capital, but it's the biggest city, the third biggest city in Canada. To help residents and visitors switch to EVs, the Vancouver City Council approved requirements to expand EV charging in new non-residential buildings. So if you build a building, you have to have EV chargers. And I think that's what we should be doing everywhere. It's not a huge deal, but if you have to build it before they come, because the electric are coming in the next few years massively.
No, every jurisdiction, every city has their own kind of rules for development. And yeah, most places are just not up to date. Like there's many, many things that could be put in the building code to just, encourage, like just having a south-facing roof, just the way streets are oriented should probably be more accommodating to solar. But, every city's got to adapt their sort of zoning codes. And unfortunately, it's a slow process.
And I should mention that heat pumps, if you're just joining us, and a lot of people are just joining us recently, is that there are a air conditioner that runs in reverse, and they use electricity to heat the home. They are the solution to reducing residential greenhouse gases, one of them. Also insulation. I just applied for my grant that we have in Canada, to very generous grant. So we'll see how that goes. I'll keep you updated later on in the show as that progresses forward. I have to get an energy evaluation done, which they'll actually pay for, unlike last time, 10, 15 years ago. So, yeah, that's exciting. And looking at some windows and some attic insulation. But, yeah, they run in reverse, and we need to put them in homes, including colder climates, the northern U.S. and Canada, many places in Europe, a lot of places in the world that are cool or cold need heat pumps to replace gas or oil or inefficient electric heating, baseboard heating.
Yeah, and it's a inexpensive way to heat with electricity because it's just way more efficient than a typical electric heater. But, here in Canada where it gets to minus 20, the minus 20 is kind of the threshold. These air source heat pumps can heat up to about minus 20 Celsius. Below that, you might need a backup resistance heater or, maybe keep your natural gas furnace for a little while longer for when it gets that cold. But it's just a really efficient way to use electricity to heat your home. It's 3 or 4 times better the efficiency than a traditional electric heater.
So one of the journalists I follow, Bloomberg New Energy, is saying that the giant new electric scooter factory that Ola is building in India is a bigger deal for sustainable mobility than any car plant. And that is because many people in the world, in India and in Asia, Southeast Asia, are using 2 or 3 wheel transportation. They're worse than a car for pollution, even though they use less gas. There's no pollution controls on these vehicles, and
for the gas-powered
ones. So they're building an electric mobility plant, a huge one, a gigafactory for scooters, and that is very, very exciting. We're going to continue to follow that.
Yeah, small engines are often worse polluters, so that would be amazing.
And biodiesel for transport, says one of the guys I follow on Twitter, Asad Razuk, says that it makes no sense. And I've been questioning that because we're getting a biodiesel plant or 2 down from my house. I have to smell them crushing canola for biodiesel.
You're going to have to smell that too?
I'll have 3 smells in the neighborhood. Beyond myself, I'll have the refinery, I'll have a canola crushing plant, which I've smelled in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, smells terrible, and a steel mill. So, yeah, I'm going to have to move. The question is where. Where is not going to be affected by climate change? Where am I going to move? Maybe I'll build a rammed earth house down by your lake, and we could do the podcast out there. Have a studio. We'll just get together every week in the heat as the rest of the world melts. So, yeah, he's saying it makes no sense. Yeah, because they're wiping out forests the size of the Netherlands to grow more biodiesel because, it's an oil of sorts. So let's not do that. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. Maybe in aviation, I don't know, but I'm kind of against biodiesel these days.
Yeah, it's never made much sense.
Tesla has 11% of the electric market share in the UK. Remember, the UK are buying a lot of electric cars. We've got a new swimming pool in our town here of Regina, Saskatchewan, where the swimming pool is... I found it interesting because they're putting solar panels on the roof of the new pool, but they're not the kind that I have for my pool. They're not the kind that actually heats the water thermally. They're PV solar panels, so they're using that to run the pool pump and to heat the pool with electricity, which is not efficient. Although they do have heat pumps for pools. I saw it at Costco. When you click on the Costco website and go to swimming pool section, which I do because I have a pool. I'm a pool person. I like my pool. They have got these heat pumps, which are thousands of dollars. But you can heat your pool with electricity. But I say, hey, that's nice. But throw up a thermal solar panel. They're cheaper. I spent $2,000 on mine. They will last 20 years.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised. Maybe somebody didn't crunch the numbers. You can also get heat pump clothes dryers as well. So same thing, just dries your clothes with electricity, but just way more efficient.
Right, and we have electric clothes dryer now, but that's just more efficient of the clothes dryer. How much more expensive are those, Brian?
Well, it's quite a bit more. So it may not always make sense financially, but there's still houses in Canada that have natural gas powered clothes dryers. So, we got to get rid of all that.
You got to get rid of that. Definitely got to get rid of that. We were talking about the heat wave in Canada. Well, there was this huge lightning, right? The ridiculous. We talked about that. Well, apparently, I've got a fact to add to that. It's about 5% of Canada's annual lightning and just 0.2% of the year. That's how much lightning was produced in that. 5% of the entire country's annual lightning in one event. And then you have tinder dry forest that it's striking. It's insane. It's just insane.
No, something like 30,000 ground strikes, but then there was also like another 500,000 just in the clouds, like not ground strikes, but something like another 700,000 lightning strikes within the clouds.
I'm looking at a map of those because they can map those. It's massive. It's a massive arc going from the lower southeast BC, southwest Alberta, all the way up to Canada's north. It's just insane. It's insane. To look, it must have been so weird to witness that. I haven't seen any videos.
Used to have an app on my phone. I had it for a while, which would actually track lightning in your local area and show you where all the lightning strikes were happening. So there is equipment that's monitoring all this and keeping track of it.
Yes, if you're Canadian, on the Environment Canada website for your weather page, there is a lightning link, so it will show you the lightning in North America strikes. And it is actually updated more than the radar, so you can actually track a storm a little bit better that way. And see where it's going, especially if it's not producing rain yet. You can see what's building. Brian, that's our time for this week. This is could be our last show for a little while, but we will be around throughout the summer with new shows. We're going to take a bit of a break probably, but don't worry, we will be back. And I will have to say refreshed.
A vacation is good.
So stick around for the Clean Energy Show. We're here usually every Wednesday. With the latest in clean energy and transportation. We are obsessed about this stuff. We like to talk about electric cars, Tesla, and solar, wind, all that stuff. Stick around, subscribe to the show, and contact us at cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. We're on Twitter, Clean Energy Pod, one word, Clean Energy Pod on Twitter. Direct message us there, tweet us, retweet, follow us. We're even on TikTok as Clean Energy Pod. And we have a SpeakPipe account if you'd like to leave us a voicemail, which we love, because we get to hear your voice on the show. Speakpipe.com/Clean Energy Show. Brian Stockton, it's been a blast. A fiery blast. We'll talk to you next week.
See you next week.